There are three types of people in this world. There are those that see, those that see when shown, and those that simply cannot see. In the Gnostic teachings, we are told that they are the pneumatics, the psychics, and the hylics. And in more modern times, we generally call the hylic, those who cannot see, the NPC, non-player character or backdrop character. These people have little to no consciousness at all. They're basically flesh robots. They only think and act on an AI programming that they have. They don't act on a spiritual nature at all. The spiritual doesn't exist in their world. They are completely 100% dependent on the physical reality. And if faced with anything outside of that, they tend to face it with ridicule, laughter, and mockery. Now, we are taught in ancient cultures such as Gnosticism that hylics are no different to the rest of us in many ways, and they should still be respected equally. There is no hierarchy. They're on their path, we're on ours, but we bounce off of each other. The hylics are just as valid as the pneumatics and the psychics. I disagree. Not because I think I'm better than anyone else, but because from what I have learned through meditation and research, I've come to the conclusion that most people haven't, but I've come to the conclusion that hylics are in fact probably one of the biggest threats we face when living a physical mortal life. Hylics are not just ignorant, and they're not just arrogant. They like to spread their arrogance and their ignorance across the earth, across the whole of the third dimension. Now, people give in to peer pressure quite often. If you're a spiritual person and you're surrounded by hylics, chances are you won't be willing to admit that you're a psychic or spiritual person because the hylics will make fun of you. That's peer pressure coming from a robot. Hylics are very much robots, made of bone, flesh and blood, but they're still robots. They get all their information from the physical world, which is not even a real thing. Just like any other AI robot would do, they download their daily updates from mainstream media, news, TV, newspapers, that kind of thing. And whatever those things say is the facts. They don't question it. They don't think for themselves and think, hey, how do we know that's true? Who's actually spreading that information? They haven't got a conscious mind to do that. They just follow the program. And they don't have any consciousness. I would argue that this is one of the biggest threats we face, because by spreading their arrogance and by mocking people with their peer pressure and ignorance of the spiritual planes, they are in turn preventing human beings from ascending and escaping from this physical hell. Hylics are very much human in appearance, very much human in their character in many ways. They have likes, they have dislikes, they have favourite films and music, but they're artificial. There is no consciousness driving them, and if there is, it's extremely suppressed. I would argue they don't have any. They're completely running as AI, in my view. It's in my experience. Now let's not get them mixed up with just regular atheists, because an atheist can still be conscious. They might not believe in a god, which is, in my view, still pretty dumb, but they're not completely running on a program. Because an atheist, generally, okay, they have their beliefs and they're entitled to that. Every human has got their right to their beliefs. But with an atheist, a regular atheist, they can be respectful to those that are not. And they can live their life respectfully and kind and peacefully amongst people that are not atheists. A hylic is far, far different. Hylics cannot respect anyone spiritual because they are so disconnected from source that anything like that is considered fairy tale and fantasy. The ironic part being that they actually believe in a lot of fairy tales given to them by mainstream media. And if you even mention anything spiritual to them, it's ridiculed instantly. A Heilig would be, I don't just believe there's no God, there isn't one. That's a fact. This is how a robot would respond, because a robot can't comprehend it either. They can't comprehend that they could be wrong. They can't comprehend that there may be more that they're not aware of, because the Heilig knows everything. According to its software programming, it knows all there is to know, and that all comes from mainstream news and media. Mainstream science, in particular, which, as anyone with a conscious mind knows, is actually a religion. Mainstream science is a dogma in itself. It cannot, by any means, step out of its box to explore further possibilities. And the scientists that do suddenly get ridiculed, made fun of, and disregarded because, oh, he's crazy. He's saying nonsense about spiritual things. Even though the science is pointing towards it. Because mainstream science isn't real science. It's a religion. It's a little box that it won't step out of because it's scared to step beyond those boundaries. And that's why mainstream science never reaches any new astounding discoveries. They'll tell you existence came in with the Big Bang. Ask them what caused the Big Bang. You don't really get a straight answer. They'll tell you that man came from monkeys. Ask them where the missing link is. You won't get a straight answer. They're just as ignorant as the religious perspective dogma as well. Because they will just say the universe was made by God and that's it. You need to take that step further. And Heiligs can't do this. They are not capable of doing this. You can be an atheist and not be a Heilig, but you cannot be a Heilig and not be an atheist. And that's what brings me to my main point of this video. We're taught that Heiligs are just like us, but they're on different paths, maybe of a lower vibrational frequency. No. I disagree. I don't agree with what the Gnostics say, in that Heiligs are valid and they're important to us. I don't believe that, no. Heiligs are an obstacle. And I don't believe they were created by the true God either. I don't believe they were created by the monad. Heiligs were created by the demiurge, the false god, Yahweh, Yaldabaoth, Jehovah. The god of the physical world created them. Why? The same reason he created his demons and his servants. To help keep us in our cells. You see, what is better than an empty shell that looks just like everyone else, but serves the program? I mean, if we were to go outside now and we saw these otherworldly looking beings trying to tell us what's right and wrong, we're not going to trust them. But if it's other human beings, or at least what looks like regular human beings, we're going to believe them. Because, hey look, no one believes in that anymore. Everyone says it. Mainstream science says there's no God, there's no spirits, there's no this, there's no that. The news tells us all of this negative stuff about the physical world, and that's all there is. And everyone in the world just generally believes that, right? But what they don't tell you is that most of these people are Heiligs. Artificial consciousness. They're not real. They don't have human soul. They don't have a conscious mind. They operate solely on the left side of the brain. They are completely robotic. If they watch the news and it tells them the sky is red, suddenly they will start to see blue as red. Because the update that they've downloaded said so. Just like you would program a robot to say and believe whatever you want. You teach it wrong and it will believe the wrong. And Heiligs, they don't like people with a spiritual mind. They just get mocked, they get ridiculed. They can't give you an answer to any of the questions you ask them, but they will mock your answers that you have for those questions. They won't look into them either. They will refuse to look at the research. If there is evidence, which there actually is now, scientifically, by real scientists, that there is more beyond the third dimension, then they will either ridicule that or they won't look into it at all. Probably both, usually. If you look here on this screen, this is a typical screenshot of a Hylic. Now, I took this screenshot fairly recently. I saw it pop up on something and I thought, wow, that guy is completely stupid. So I screenshotted it. And if you look at this message, this Hylic claims to be an atheist that doesn't believe in anything. Now, if you look at how he is posted, he's so matter of fact. He's so like, there is no debate on the subject. And he was actually debating with someone that did have a brain, a conscious mind, who was also into science, but was open-minded to understand that we don't know everything. And to claim that you do, to 100% say there's no such thing as spirits of any kind or anything beyond the physical world, is the definition of ignorance and stupidity. The smartest man alive knows that they don't know everything. But these Hylics, they think they know everything because they're robots. They're programmed to believe that they know everything. So that's what they will project. I mean, if you just look down this line, he's not just an atheist. This guy is a complete Hylic. He's probably the lowest vibrational form of Hylic to ever walk the earth. I mean, this is like arguing with a brick wall. And you'll notice also with this message here, it's full of laughing emoticons. There's that ridicule and mockery again, because they can't debate you. They'll act like they know it all. They act like they can school you, but they know nothing. And they face anything that they don't understand with ridicule. This is a very common trait of a Hylic. So, this brings me to my main point. We are taught that Hylics are just like us, but on a different path, and they're there to help us in many ways, to see our own blind spots. I disagree. And they're making sure that humanity is dumbed down, stupid, gives into peer pressure, and in turn prevents their own ascension to get out of this hell. Because our goal in life while we're here, there's only one purpose we all have: to never come back ever again. We are serving a prison sentence right now. And the only way out is knowledge. To learn who we really are. To know ourselves. To know that we are not this physical form. This avatar that we are playing a game with. We are infinite consciousness, and we've been trapped here by a very, very malevolent force, and it doesn't want us to go away, because the moment we escape, it loses its food source. They will never ascend. They will never reach the next world. There is no next world for them. They will evaporate. Even in ancient Gnostic teachings, it teaches us that the Hylics will evaporate. They don't go on to the next life. What does that tell you? That there's nothing driving the vehicle except software. They have no consciousness. How can they survive death if there's nothing in them to survive death? They will evaporate. They will die and rot in the earth. That's all they can do, because they don't have anything within them. We do. And we mustn't fall for their nonsense. A lot of this propaganda to keep us here is spread through mainstream news, mainstream science, mainstream media, and it's spread to us by demonic entities that operate and control this entire dimension. The third dimension was not created by God. It was created by the false God. This is his domain. This world belongs to an abortion. It belongs to a consciousness that was so detached from source that it forgot it even existed. It became ignorant of its own creation. It thinks it's God, and it's not. It's a loser, an insecure being that has no self-respect, no self-security. It hates conscious beings and it hates creativity. If you're creative, this thing hates you. And it wants to torture you and crush your creative spirit. Why do you think kids in schools are always getting told off for being creative? If you're a kid in school and you ask questions about the official narrative of something, they're told off and punished. If you think for yourself, if you've got a working brain and a mind and a consciousness, if you're creative, you will be suppressed, punished and tortured by this evil, disgusting force that controls this earth. We're not here to learn lessons. We're only here to learn one lesson. Escape. And never ever come back here. Because this place is under the control of the most unholy, disgusting abortion of an entity. And it thinks it can torture us and farm us. That's what this world is. It's a loosh farm. It feeds on our energy. It suppresses us and crushes us with negativity and hate and bitterness. And it feeds on us. This thing should not have power. And the only power it ever does have is what we give it. And to make sure that we stay powerless, it does everything it can to keep us here. And that includes the creation of the Hylics. Soulless, empty vessels that operate solely on AI. And to spread their propaganda of the physical world as fact. And if you don't take that on, they will ridicule you, mock you, make fun of you, attack you, try to make you look like a loser so you give in to peer pressure, or you get shunned. Well, fuck them. Fuck the Hylics and fuck their creator. And that brings me to my conclusion on what these things actually are. Hylics may not have built our physical world prison, but they are certainly the prison guards. Thanks for watching.